Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ted Santos, and I am your host. And tonight, it's Friday night. And you know what we do on Fridays? We YouTube and chill. So we're going to sit back and we're going to talk about relationships, the intimacy of it. And you know, I always love talking about sex. And we probably won't, you know, how I say, dive into sex tonight. But we are going to talk about relationships. And we're going to talk about advice and how people love giving advice. And there's so much bad advice out there. Information overload. So good evening, and good evening to everyone. You know what happens on Fridays? We do the YouTube and chill, where we can kind of sit back and we talk about intimacy. We talk about relationships. Usually love talking about sex, you know, getting into that sex thing and creating those feel-good moments in the conversation. Last week we had a tough topic talking about sex and numbers, body count for women. And man, they're still steaming over that conversation. They just didn't want to hear it. There are a lot of women who believe the biology of a man and woman is just equal somehow, even though in the middle of the Olympics, they believe the biology of a man and woman is just equal and they can do whatever we do. Quite interesting. But tonight, as you see, we're talking about advice. You know, we live in the age of information overload. And there's so much information out there, information about managing your money, managing your relationships, managing your pet relationship. There's just a ton of information out there. Information overload. One says, do it this way, and the other person says, don't do it that way. So, you know, what are people going to think out there? And my, you could say, inspiration for this was someone looking for relationship advice on Reddit. And I'll tell you all about that. But I wanted to just really look at, there's so much bad relationship advice out there, and some of it is taken for good advice. So I want to get into whether or not people are giving you bad relationship advice. You know, there's so many marriages that are not working, and there's so many relationships that never make it to marriage. And a lot of times is because people are either getting bad advice or they're seeing bad examples, and they're making decisions based on bad advice or bad examples. So I thought I would get into that. So for all of you who join me on Fridays on YouTube and chill, thank you. I definitely appreciate your support. I drop my PayPal and Cash App links in there in the chats. If you haven't smashed the thumbs up button, smash that thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to me, you can smash that subscribe and hit the bell so you get notifications for future shows that I do. I have a lot of good videos on dealing with relationships. And if you look at some of my older work, you know, I'm this. My day job is to work with CEOs and other executives in corporations and giving advice in making quantum leaps in the growth of the company. And I'm also transforming corporate culture. So all of the tools that I use in my professional life are completely 100% transferable to relationships, dating and relationships. I mean, that's how I actually came up writing a book. The book was transference of some of the part of my methodology in transforming culture and transforming executives, and I just infused them into relationships. So, like to look at this like my book. Some of this, what we're going to talk about today, may be counterintuitive because there are some things there. There are so many things that are promoted to the general population as good advice, and then when you really sort of strip it down and really understand it, you find out a lot of this is not good advice at all. So smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't, share this video. Would like to have both men and women be part of this, because I think probably happens more often for women. There are more women who are influenced by their friends and given bad advice that in the end causes that woman to lose her relationship, and she actually lost a good relationship. I know of people who married for years, right? Married years, several children. Husband works a lot, wife works if she wants to, and great lifestyle. I mean, like really good lifestyle. The kids have all the toys and trinkets. The wife gets the mink coats and the rings, and they have the cars and a big house, and everything is great. And the wife has a friend who's whispering in her ear, like, you can do better. There's this other stuff. So the wife is getting bad advice, really bad advice, and then gets advice to file for a divorce. Fast forward years down the line, the wife is saying to her ex-husband, why did you let me get a divorce? You knew it was just a phase. It was just acting crazy. I'm sorry. You should have never let me get the divorce. And this happens. And if you look at who the woman is usually getting advice from, it's usually from someone who you don't want a relationship like theirs, or they don't have one at all. The bitter Betty is giving advice. So, I go to the gym. So imagine I want to build biceps, right? I want to build chest. I want to build cut and mass. And I go in the gym, and the guy who is 5'10", 320 pounds, and when he walks, it looks like what sounds like an earthquake is coming, because he's just fat, 5'10", 320 pounds. And that guy is ready to give me advice on how to build cut and mass. Clearly he's achieved mass, right? 320 pounds, that's a lot of weight. But it's unhealthy also. So why would I listen to a guy who's 5'10", 320, smokes, chain smoker, and he's going to tell me how to be successful in the gym and build a healthy body? And that's often what happens with people when they get relationship advice. They're getting it from someone who actually has not achieved what most people would want. And so I went online today. I was looking at some relationship forums, and I saw something from Reddit. Very interesting. A guy, 22, he and his girlfriend are both 22. They started dating at 16. They were both virgins. Neither of them have had sex with anyone else. So they both took one another's virginity. I don't know at what age, it doesn't matter. But so met at 16, both virgins, took one another's virginity. They're now 22, and the woman is clear. She wants to marry this guy. They want to buy a house. Like all of these are being discussed, right? Like clear, definite next step is marriage. and the guy is not interested in anyone else. The woman, on the other hand, wants to have some experiences with other men. Now, I don't know the couple, haven't spoken to them, but I would wonder if this is the case of her friends whispering, even if it's one or many friends saying, hey, you don't know what you're missing. You've been with one guy. You don't even know if he's good, or convincing her that he's not good. And now she's second guessing her relationship and saying, hey, just let me have sex with some other guys and then we can get married. Let me just get this out of my system. And, a lot of women have been told, don't fall for the first guy that you meet. Try your options. And most of the women who follow that become a statistic. By 35, or even sometimes by their late 20s, they're trying to recapture those heartfelt feelings they had for that first guy they liked, that they really liked. And he's gone now. Except they were told, you can do better. Find out there are better options out there. They keep giving this advice. And the cycle of generation after generation, women are finding out that that's just a trap. You find the guy, you really like him, and then you try your options, and then you find that that first guy that you really liked and you were told not to fall for him is the guy you should have fell for. So these women can't get back to that guy, so then they're on search. They're spending the rest of their life trying to find someone like that first guy, and no one measures up. They're looking for something that they allowed someone to talk them out of. And it's really unfortunate that so many women, by the time they hit 35, 36, have a story about the guy who got away. So when I read this and read it, I really thought, what is this woman being influenced? Because the guy is saying, I don't need to be with another woman. I'm fine with being with you for the rest of my life. And I've heard many guys talk about how men often love women more than or deeper than what women love men. And maybe that's the case. Maybe that has always been the case, or maybe that's just a recent phenomenon since the feminists told women to stop being stop being feminine, stop being so loving and affectionate, be tough, find your masculine side, and then telling men to find their feminine side. So there's a lot of confusion out here in the world. And then when you put on top of all of this bad advice, and some of the advice has great intention. So, whether it's a married woman having a friend whisper in her ear, or this Reddit couple where I'm assuming this 22-year-old woman has someone whispering in her ear, I actually addressed that. I didn't spend a lot of time in my book, but I addressed it, and I call it third-party interference. And that's when, you have your couple, and then some third party sort of orbiting that relationship may be completely envious of your relationship. And they want to see it fail, or they're just the equivalent of the guy who's 5'10", 320 pounds. So they've had disastrous relationships, disastrous marriages, and they would hate to see one of their friends or even family members have a successful relationship. So they engage in, they co-conspire to sabotage their relationships. So that's really kind of the context of this conversation and where I'm coming from. And I'd like to share, I'll do a screen share. You guys know I love doing screen shares. But I want to share some typical good relationship what people would call relationship advice, and look at the flip side of that advice, and or really closely examine why a lot of this advice is not good. So they're under the Fair Use Act. I am I'm just copyright disclaimer under fair use. I'm only using this for purposes of education and criticism to have a better understanding of this topic. So I'm going to do a screen share. We are going to talk about, are people giving bad advice? And we're going to go through a video that lays out a number of what you would call normal advice, except it's not so good. Okay.
Number 1, lower your standards. There's absolutely nothing wrong with knowing the type of qualities you are looking for in a person. You should always be searching for someone who embodies those qualities. We all deserve the best, and you should never settle for anything less.
So yes, you do hear people say, "Hey man," or "Hey woman, you should just lower your standards," right? And you know what? Some people are too picky, right? And maybe we live in an age of and I question. There are people that have these standards. What they offer is here, and what they expect from another person. So instead of them bridging that gap, like in developing themselves, self-improvement, helping themselves to rise up, that relationship could be kind of ugly because there's such a big gap or a gap period. Instead of them rising up, what often happens is they try to pull that person down to their level, to where they're comfortable. And lowering your standards could be unhealthy, but just, it's important to do an inventory of yourself to make sure the standards that you expect in another person, make sure you have them yourself. So I'm only suggesting people be realistic, and if you are, lowering your standards really isn't in your best interest.
Number 2, you need to change him or her. It's important to recognize you can't change your partner's entire character to fit your expectations either. If you're trying to change everything about your partner, it's the relationship that isn't working, not them. Number 3.
So yeah, we've all heard that, and there are definitely guys who want to change women, but there are way too many women. I saw a meme where a couple, they met, and the woman is like, "Yeah, you're a cool guy. I like you. But maybe you should wear different clothes." So she got him to go shopping, and she picked out his clothes. And then she said, "Well, maybe you should shave off that beard and change your hairstyle." So he shaves his beard off, changes his hairstyle. And then there was one other thing she asked him to change. And then she said, "Yeah, this relationship is not working. You're no longer the guy you used to be. So I'm out," right? So, there are lots of women who want to change men, and allowing yourself to be changed can cause resentment, right? So she may not see you as powerful and as masculine as she wants you to be, and anyone can just influence you. So there may be some level of resentment there, or loss of respect, as people say. And whoever she liked initially, that's who she liked. And so, I just wonder, like I said, third party interference. I just wonder if sometimes women are worried about what someone else is thinking. So they're attempting to change you instead of really embracing the person they really like. So let's look at number 3.
Never go to bed angry.
Now, this is an interesting one because we hear this a lot. Never go to bed angry. And this video is called Bad Relationship Advice That You Should Never Follow. Listen to what they say.
Common advice suggests you shouldn't go to sleep until all issues have been resolved with your partner. However, doctor and psychologist Nicole Martinez says that there's actually nothing wrong with it. Sleeping on it can help you both discuss the argument with a clear head in the morning. Number?
It's counterintuitive, right? Everyone says, don't go to bed angry. So you stay up to 4 in the morning. And, there's some merit to that. If you go to sleep and you wake up and you may have a very different perspective in the morning. Let's look at number 4.
Number 4. The fun doesn't last. The person you choose to share your life with should make your life better. Although the excitement from the beginning of the relationship will fade, Psych Central states that fun is part of a healthy, happy relationship.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? So I've heard so many people say, well, in a relationship, we're going to eventually be like brother and sister. It's going to be boring. We're going to get fat. Like all of these presuppositions that people bring in, at some point we have to start questioning. And that's a major part of the reason I'm doing the show on this topic, because we take relationship advice that we receive as though it's golden, golden. It may be from our parents or other relatives or friends. And this stuff just gets passed on and it perpetuates and it really doesn't work, So even though there's so much relationship advice that's given and people just believe because you heard it so many times, it's true. It's like you guys have heard me talk about how they used to believe the Earth was the center of the universe and all the planets went around the Earth. Well, a guy, Copernicus, said that's inaccurate. The sun is the center and all the planets go around the sun. And well, they executed him for that heresy. And they kept perpetuating a lie. Just because you keep repeating a lie, it never makes it true. Even though everyone believes the lie instead of believing the truth. I hope I didn't lose anyone on that. But, lies don't become true just because you keep repeating them. Let's look at number 5.
Number 5. Opposites attract.
How many times have we heard this one? Opposites attract, right? Common sense. Some of these are what people would consider common sense. Let's hear what they say about this.
Researchers from the University of California disproved this myth and suggested we do, in fact, find ourselves drawn to people who are similar to ourselves. It doesn't mean one way is better than the other, but don't waste your time on someone you have nothing in common with.
You hear me talk about compatibility all the time. It's what, the thrust of my book is really about understanding compatibility with yourself, right? And each person, compatibility will look different for each individual. Except common sense, people have been saying this for decades, opposites attract. And they say it as though it's really true, like it's a fact. And that's one of the challenges when things go so-called common sense goes unopposed for decades or generations. So they have found that opposites attracting is a myth.
Number 6, arguing is unhealthy. Arguing is actually good for your relationship if the two of you are doing it right. Clinical psychologist Rachel Needle says in her website that arguing is normal and disagreements should encourage conversation where both partners feel safe.
Okay, this is important. Being able to argue, right? Or more importantly, being able to disagree. Let's hear what else they have to say. Okay, so being able to disagree, being able to argue. you do want to be able to express yourself, right? And oftentimes people are arguing, they're yelling because they believe they're not being heard by their significant other. And so it's really essential that uh, people practice listening. And we're really not trained as most human beings, we're not trained to listen. I mean, if you work in a corporation that has a really great curriculum on leadership, listening is absolutely essential for leadership and leadership training. Except most of what we do is we don't listen. People uh, put so much effort into invalidating what the other person says. So essentially, we kind of have never been taught how to learn, and that's what makes it so difficult to listen. We've been taught how to memorize. So, just for example, uh, the advice that's here, people just know it to be factual and common sense. And it's difficult to learn something when you already presuppose what you know is factual, is the truth. So there's your challenge. People don't really, and this is God, this is gonna sound crazy, but most of us never learned how to learn. We just learned how to memorize things and then regurgitate it. We're almost trained to be parrots. Uh, so I'll leave it there. Number 7.
Number 7, love is enough. The idea that when you've met the right person, it's smooth sailing is far from the truth. Like any success in life, it requires effort and hard work.
So Hollywood, romance novels, there are tons of things we hear about love conquers all, right? All you need is love. Even songs, right? The Beatles, all you need is love. Ugh. We have indoctrinated people with this belief that all you need is love and that everything is fine if you have love. And if you're arguing or your relationship is not going well, then uh, this is where lots of people break off. It's like, well, um, things are not going as smooth as I wanted them to, so I don't love you anymore. And if if this was love, I wouldn't have to put so much effort into it, right? So, I've heard a number of women talk about relationships should be effortless, and and when you ask some questions, you find out what they mean by effortless is it's effortless for the woman, and the man is supposed to put in all the effort because that's your job. You're the hunter. You're supposed to do all this stuff, and she should be able to just sort of glide right across and not have to put any effort. Uh, that's that whole happy wife, happy life, huh? So let's see what the next one is saying.
Number 8, give him or her the silent treatment.
Yeah. So communication, right? Everyone says communication is key. And just for the record, sex is the most intimate communication you can have. Right? They're not going to mention that, but you see, give him or her the silent treatment. And what a lot of people do with the most intimate part of your communication, which is sex, is they withhold it. That's another way of a silent treatment.
Whether you are purposely leaving the person hanging through text or you're upset and not talking to your partner, the silent treatment is never a good idea. Communication is key to a successful relationship. If you need to cool off before you feel ready to have a calm and respectful conversation, then you certainly should. But it's important that you express your vulnerable side and not just your angry one. If you think some of the relationship advice so far is bad, you got to keep watching for some even more ridiculous relationship advice that you should absolutely never follow.
Yeah, silent treatment. Um, and I would assume men do this as well. Uh, but sometimes women do it because they're looking for you to chase me, make me feel important, make me feel worth it. You gotta, these words, fight for the relationship. I mean, why would you want fighting in your relationship? I mean, that's another topic. Like, if you just listen to the language that we use, we fight for things. We make our arguments clear instead of having discourse and conversation. It has to be arguments and fights. We've been trained to have that kind of mindset. Just pay attention to your language.
Number 9, learn to be irresistible.
This one is interesting.
People, and especially women, have been giving this advice for most of their lives. You'll see it on the cover of most beauty magazines. Turning up the heat in a relationship is never a bad idea, but trying to become someone you're not will almost always fail. Relationship psychotherapist Ken Page says that irresistibility is a terrible goal to strive for because it is impossible to attain, and you won't have any fun trying. Number 10.
That's interesting, right? So focusing on being irresistible, that's, I guess, this is what men talk about in terms of manipulation. So instead of being yourself, so the man can know if he really likes who you are, you're focusing on being irresistible as opposed to being your authentic self. That's manipulation. And and this is maybe where a lot of guys find themselves in a dilemma of the woman losing interest, because once she proves that she can be irresistible and she's like got you, it's almost like there was a game, right? There was not much else to it except she was attempting to be the Venetian flytrap. And once she believes she's got you, you're gotten, you're smitten, you're bitten. It's over. And that's what it was really about for her, proving that she's irresistible. So she's got to go off and be irresistible to the next guy. Let's see number 10.
Be strong, but not too strong.
Yet, something women are told to do. Be strong. Not sure what value that brings to a relationship. I definitely address that in my book. For the ladies who are, I got to show you I'm strong and independent and I'm tough. I'm unsure what that has to do with an intimate relationship and why you need to prove that to someone with whom you want to be intimate. Like, someone help me understand the logic.
The next point is also typically directed at women. Women are told that strong female figures are people to look up to, yet in the same breath are also required to be sexy, feminine, soft, and vulnerable. The way this translates, and especially in heterosexual relationships, is that you're meant to embody one trait or the other so as to not threaten traditional gender roles. The healthy way, however, is to inhabit how you feel at any given moment or scenario in a genuine way, whether that's anger or fear.
So think about this. If they said focusing on being irresistible is unhealthy, focusing on being strong and tough has to be unhealthy, because at what point do you just be your authentic self? Like, when I go to the gym, the guy who's walking around the gym telling everyone or trying to show everyone they're strong is never as strong as the guy who walks into the gym and you just know he's strong when he walks in. Like, you can see it. He never even has to say anything about being strong, because you can see the results of his discipline and his work, his commitment, is what you see. And you see the power and strength without him ever having to say anything. The guy who has to go around telling everyone he's strong is usually the guy who's not strong at all. He's just exercising his jaws, which provide no value.
Number 11, get married because it's time. It's 2018, but people still feel a rush of anxiety when they hit a certain age and they haven't found the one yet. It's understandable. Couples are trying to tie the knot left, right, and center. You've got the post-grad wave, the late 20s wave, the mid-30s wave, but none of that means you should rush to marry if you're not ready. Follow your own intuition and life path, and if that means staying single until you're 45 or forever, it's better than getting married to the wrong person because you're taking cues from everyone else around you.
So interesting, right? So a man is in a better position to wait until he's 45 to get married. Uh, a woman, not so much. So if a woman decides to just wait until 45 to get married and have a family, that's a risk on her part. It's very risky. And this is, where I talked earlier about the biology of a man and woman. We're not equal. So if a man waits until 45 to get married, he can raise a family and provided he remains healthy. Even if a woman is healthy, uh, she's risking walking down menopause. A man can, sire children as long as he can get it up, right? So women don't have this equality uh, of time that men have. So I get it. If a woman really wants to be married, she'd be wise to make herself available. First, you need to know what kind of man you want. And if you understand the standards you have, you first need to know if you match, if you bring what is required for those standards. Be healthy and be yourself. Don't try to show them you're irresistible or you're tough or any of those things. If you want the marriage to last and you want to, if you truly, as women say, they love their children, then if you love your children, give them what they need. And that's a two-parent household. That's what children need.
Number 12, relationships should be easy. This is one of the biggest lies you'll ever be told, and it's a pretty bad one, too. Think about it. When did you ever have or accomplish anything great without working hard? It's up to you to determine how much effort a relationship deserves. Dr. Jude Black of etherapycafe.com says that the strength of relationship is usually measurable by the time and effort that has been invested into the relationship.
Okay. So this is the same thing as saying relationships are hard. So if someone says relationships are easy, that's kind of that they're effortless. To say relationships are not easy because they are hard, that's dangerous. Because that's what most people do is they go into a relationship believing relationships are hard. And once you believe something, once you know that that's the reality and that's the way it is, you look for evidence to support what you believe. So what ends up happening is people do things that support what they already believe. So here's another perspective. If you want to play golf, tennis, U.S. football, you want to play running back in football. Well, to say being a running back is easy, especially in the NFL, could sound ridiculous. However, if you put in the training, the development, weight training, speed training, you have the agility, the moves, you have the power. You have moves to be able to hit and bounce off. Like you've developed yourself into a running back that when he gets the ball, bang, you take off, you find that hole, you shoot, you get hit, you know how to move off or fake people out. it will look easy to people up in the stands. And it's not that it's hard for people who are on the field playing, it's that they are prepared. So I could say we could go to accounting, right? We could look at finance and accounting and financial statements and balance sheets and understanding how to strategically create a financial plan for an organization to move forward and budget. If you have trained for this, it becomes easy because you are prepared to execute what needs to happen. Now, if you want to take it to the next level, it's going to require effort that you hadn't put in already, right? That's the same with sports, with anything. So relationships are hard work for people who are not prepared for relationships. And most of us are completely unprepared for relationships. We go in playing trial and error. We push buttons and pull levers, and we want to see, well, how does this work and how does that work? And well, I saw my parents do it. We don't actually know if it works. We don't actually understand why we're doing it. We're just repeating what we saw someone else do. Or you have someone whispering in your ear telling you what to do, and you try it. And you may get great results, it may be mediocre, or it may crash and burn. But most of us are not prepared. So this is why relationships are not easy, because we are not prepared to produce the results we want in a relationship. This is the problem. And it's why relationships can be such hard work. When you add to it that people are taught and believe that playing games is just a natural part of relationships, well, you know where that goes.
Number 13, jealousy means they love you. Is jealousy a sign of love?
So this is an interesting, right? So, earlier we talked about love conquers all, right? All you need in a relationship is love. And it perhaps going along with being unprepared, most of us are not even prepared to understand love in a relationship. And that in what we have here is what you get, right? So we use jealousy as a measurement to know whether or not someone loves us.
According to Susie and Otto Collin from relationshipgold.com, that's not true. Instead, they say that it probably means that there's some sort of self-esteem issue going on with your partner. Number 14, no one will love you like they do.
I saw a quote, and it was a guy. He said, my ex-girlfriend told me, you'll never find another woman like me again. And he said, I hope not. Why do you think I ended the relationship with you? I never want to find someone like you.
This is absolutely not true. If anyone ever tells you this, you really need to think hard about the role they play in your life. Janice Harmon of PsychCentral.com says this is a phrase that is often used to keep an individual in an abusive relationship. Don't allow this bad advice to keep you stuck in a harmful relationship. Number 15, be the boss.
Yeah, we hear this a lot, right? Especially women want to all be bosses, right? They want to lead men. They want to be the boss. And you guys have heard me talk about how many women lead from the bottom, right? So if you're having sex, supposedly whoever's on top during sex is in the power position, right? They are what you call in control. Well, a lot of women have learned to allow men to believe they're on top and in control, except she's leading him from the bottom. And because he's on top, he has no clue that he's being led, because she's letting him believe he's in control or leading.
An article in humanexplorer.com explains that this is the kind of attitude that you should pass on, and instead states that in a healthy relationship, each partner has a field where he or she shines, and logically they take the lead in those situations. A strong and loving relationship is one where there is mutual support and understanding. Number 16, love comes when you least expect it. This is just a sappy rom-com one-liner you should ignore. Relationship expert Adam LaDolce wrote an article in which he argues that this is bad advice because it takes the ownership off of you to go out there and find it. Number 17, don't make a small problem bigger.
A lot of guys, believe it or not, are silenced this way. Don't make a small problem. Hey, you're making a big deal out of nothing. Like, guys will often back off because because it would seem like getting to the heart of the matter of a situation in a relationship, the woman could withhold sex or even give you the silent treatment, right? So this is a problem, right?
According to an article on truthinsideyou.org, bottling up your emotions is just about the worst thing you can do because the little things add up to a big thing, and it'll be much more difficult to solve a problem of that scale.
Right, so things get swept under the rug. Oftentimes men put things on the surface, on the table, and say, I want to talk about this. I saw this. Actually, I watched this happen in Clubhouse. You may have heard me talk about this. Telling women, hey, these are things men don't like. And the women say, well, both need, men, what about men? And it's like, no, I just put something on the table and no one is acknowledging what I put on the table. What you're doing is usurping and saying what the woman's concern is more important than what the man is. And it changes the whole conversation to what she says, and whatever the man put on the table is ignored. And this happens a lot. It's why guys haven't been heard for so many decades.
They explain that by not communicating, you are sacrificing yourself for the sake of a relationship. You're just building a ticking time bomb that'll go off in the future. Number 18, we are supposed to meet each other's needs. According to a marriage and family therapist, Hal Runkel, this is the most horrible piece of advice imaginable. He says it's because it means that you are a needy person, and you need your significant other to express his or her neediness to you. Number 19, cyber snooping can save you from the wrong partner. There's a lot of bad relationship advice going around.
Sorry about that.
His or her neediness to you. Number 19, cyber snooping can save you from the wrong partner.
Yes, smartphone, well, the cell phone, man, has created so many problems, especially since with the whole social media. And you have Facebook's relationship status, complicated in a relationship, not in a, oh man. And then who are you talking to online? What are you saying? Man, this has just created such a mess. It's just added a whole dynamic to relationships that was not there before.
Dating coach Emil Loves advises that if someone gives you this advice, first examine that person's relationship before following in their footsteps.
So this is what I was saying in the beginning of this live stream. Examine the person's relationship before that person is going to be whispering in your ears. And look at their situation. If they are if they've never been in a healthy relationship, they have no clue how to create that. And they give advice that's all about making you and your significant other divisive. And their own personal is heartache and dysfunction. Why would you listen to them? That goes back to me saying, why would I listen to the guy who's 5'10", 320 pounds, who wants to give me advice on a gym on how to, build a bicep or build a healthy, strong body? Lots of people take what's considered common sense advice, right? Because we've been given this stuff. This is what we've been told. This is common sense. Perhaps we should say common sense is not so common, so that we can take a step back and examine things before we just buy into it.
She told Business Insider, if you cannot trust your partner, then you've already chosen the wrong one. The bigger question is, why are you attracted to a person whom you do not trust? Put simply, snooping destroys trust, which is the foundation of a healthy relationship. What are some of the worst?
So, yes, that's bad relationship advice that you should never, ever follow. Uh, some of that is almost funny, and unfortunately, it's a lot of advice that are given. So that's, I use the video to show how there's some things that are considered common sense and it's given. We've all heard it, and people follow it. And what I find amazing is, there's a quote: "Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is considered insanity." Yet there are so many people that take bad relationship advice and it doesn't even work for them, and they may pass it on, or they just keep doing it expecting a different result. That's insanity. Hey, PJ, yes, there's even in the manosphere, there's bad advice. Uh, and there's some things that are good that's said, but there's so much that people take as common sense and it just keeps being passed down and no one ever questions it. We, like I said, we should say common sense is not so common, so that way no one has to say, well, if you do this, that's common sense. Because there are too many things that are passed down as common sense, and they're not good for anyone. Sometimes it contradicts what they said, and worse, it contradicts what they actually do. And you see that often. Yeah. This is why you hear me often talk about conflict resolution, right? So, in the real secret to conflict resolution, you've heard me say this, is it's almost never about having the slick or smooth thing to say to the other person. It's resolving the conflicts you have within yourself about what's actually happening between you and another person or a situation. When you can resolve that conflict within yourself, you're upset about something because perhaps you misinterpreted or you presuppose or you were given bad advice, and the bad advice is in conflict with what's happening, right? So there's just the people are often dealing with their own internal conflicts, and this is, the one thing that's good about the manosphere. They constantly talk about personal development. So as you develop yourself personally, the self-improvement, right? You go through your own personal transformation, you begin to see things, that were once considered common sense. You start to develop different perspectives, even though you're looking at the same thing. So it's imperative to never stop developing yourself. And here's a word about transformation. Once you're transformed, you're not. So when I say that, transformation isn't a final destination. It's not like flying from New York to LA. And then you say, I'm in LA, I've arrived, I've I'm transformed and I don't have to do anything else. Transformation never stops. So once you are transformed, you're not. Transformation never stops and never ends. So that means your relationship can also constantly grow and develop. So, a lot of the advice that's given out here doesn't really take into effect a constant transformation. And it's not that who you are today is bad, because if a man and woman met as children when they were 5, they wouldn't be the same 5-year-old, even though there are aspects of being a 5-year-old that will follow them even when they're 15 or 30 or 70, unless they do the work and shave that off. Uh, and that's transformation. That's interesting, PJ. Women's inability to communicate, and I wonder also if women have just been made to be afraid of men, right? So, if we go back 100 years more, there was a time where women actually communicated that they were interested in a man. They would drop their handkerchief, right? I mean, that's weird to us, right? So she wherever her handkerchief was, she pull it out, she drop it, and she, maybe look at that man and let him know, I'm dropping my handkerchief so you can pick it up. And now when you give it to me, you have an excuse to actually engage me in a conversation, right? So this human interaction, the woman was responsible for letting the guy know. Now, then they had an adult human interaction. So it's not that the woman went chasing after him. She made herself clearly available that she was interested. And if he's interested, he's going to pick it up. He's going to give it to her. Even if he's not, he may pick it up, give it to her, and say, I'm married, or whatever reason he's not interested, right? Man has a right to not be interested. Except, to your point, PJ, women were not afraid to interact with a man. But the battle of the sexes have made women so afraid of men. They think every man is a potential axe murderer and a rapist. I mean, we're all cheaters. It's a small percentage of men that cheat in marriage. So women have been scared out of their natural ability to let a man know she's available. Now, here's where it completely contradicts. You put a highly successful, wealthy man in a room, somehow a woman breaks through that inability to pursue and let a man know she's interested. If he's wealthy and highly successful, athlete, businessman, entertainer, a woman will chase a man with a lot of money and make it clear that she's interested. For some reason, even in the face of feminism, women somehow break through that. And I guess they assume he's not going to hurt me. He's not an axe murderer because he's a high profile person. So, yes. Interesting, PJ. uh, there probably are some guys in the manosphere who've heard things that I've said and don't like it. So a lot of people. So PJ, this is a major reason I wrote my book, so that people could actually read about how do you get to the source of how a man or a woman sabotages a relationship, like your self-sabotage. A lot of people give advice based on surface understanding of problems in relationships. And there's a big problem, right? So people give advice without understanding the problem. And when you really understand the problem and you get underneath it and understand it, right, you actually start to reveal solutions as you become clearer on understanding the source of the problem. But people don't do that. They take their own personal or what they've heard and make assessments, and it's almost always a surface understanding of a problem. So getting underneath and getting to the source of things, some people might feel inadequate when they hear that. So yeah, they might be against it. And it's like I said, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is insanity. So here we have people dealing with surface things, and they may feel like they won or got the upper hand or one up the person, but they really didn't solve the problem. Uh, they just won over the other person. That doesn't help you have a healthy relationship, though. mean, if you're really going to create a relationship that works, you need to be as prepared for that as you are for the Olympics. A lot of women, there are more women. Listen, man, I've had women on their way to my house and asked me, just straight asked me, "Are you going to kill me?" One woman asked, "Are you going to kill me and bury me in your backyard?" Another woman had a bottle of wine someone had just given her as a gift for Christmas, and she asked, "Are you going to kill me and steal my wine?" I I don't even drink alcohol. Um, so women are being taught, and we have a TV channel called Lifetime Television, and Lifetime Television almost always shows this smart, successful, some often handsome guy who who outsmarts and murders women, uh, and so it's killed women's uh, perspective of men. But there is a lot of fear, and you know what? There really are women out there who, and I was kind of surprised to hear this, really are afraid, not in the sense of um, being hurt, but fear in a sense of not knowing what to say. Like, so, we always see it from the man's perspective. Like, so if I approach this woman, what do I say? I can have a great one liner, or I may have some initial conversation. But what do I do after that? Like, where do we go from there? And there are a lot of women who are in the same exact boat, and they may actually like the guy and not be sure what to say. I mean, I remember once putting my hand out to shake the woman's hand, and she had seen me many times. I live in a section of Jersey that's right across the Hudson River from New York. So we take, a 15-minute ride on a bus to get home. She had seen me many times. And when I put my hand out to shake her hand was literally shaking, uh, like she was really nervous. So call it people skills. People get so rewarded for being slick and smooth and showing this bravado. But how do you show who you really are? A lot of people are not good at that, right? And PJ, if the guy is wealthy, all of a sudden she knows how to approach a guy. All of a sudden she's available. Yep, yep. So conflict resolution is important, right? So, um, and there are men and women who can be in conflict with themselves when they meet someone, right? So, a woman could be approached by a guy, and the conflict for her is she may believe she doesn't really deserve this kind of guy, and she may not be he may be the kind of guy that she likes, except she may feel like I'm not deserving. This guy is probably going to leave me anyway, so she's in conflict, and that relationship will often have all kinds of conflicts in it, only because she's in conflict with herself. And a guy can do the same thing. He meets a woman. I've never been with a woman that's beautiful. She's going to want other guys, or she's going to want a guy with more money, and he's in conflict. And so once he believes that that woman doesn't want me, he's going to actually do things to make her not want him. And women do this often, right? And as they talked about jealousy, right? So in a lot of people will use or miscategorize jealousy as love. Oh, that means the person loves me, right? So uh, I want to do another screen share for this guy. He brings up a good point, and I didn't really touch on it yet. Up, 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 share. Okay. So I didn't watch this guy's whole video. Uh, let's see what he says.
Men play games. You should too.
So men play games. You should too. You should give less to the relationship to establish boundaries. So
That's something that you hear a lot. Here's how you play games. Here's how you manipulate men. Because men play games. I'm here to tell you, men don't really play games nearly as much as you think we do. I've really never talked to a guy who's like, let me think about how I could kind of fuck with her and make her miserable and make her second guess herself and her self-esteem. And it's much more mundane than that. Men don't always know what they want. They don't know that they want to sleep with you. They don't know that they want to be your boyfriend. They don't know if they want to marry you. And as a result, when he runs hot and cold or he's sometimes uncommunicative, you think it's some sort of master game playing plan.
So I'll address that, PJ, with access. So I remember I met a woman and she asked me, she said, what if you're playing the greatest game a man can ever play on a woman? And I said, well, I'm not playing any games. I said, I've been straightforward with you from the beginning. And she said, that's it. That's the best game a man could play. No game is the best game. I think I just laughed. I was driving and she's asking me this. And then she asked me, well, what if I'm just playing a game with you? And I told her, well, if you want to do that, you can. But I promise you what's going to happen is I'll scar your brain and you'll rethink playing a game with a man. And she never forgot that I'll scar your brain. It wasn't an attempt to scar her brain in that moment, but it was to make it clear I'm not playing games with you. And if you want to play games, in games someone wins and someone loses, and I'm playing to annihilate. So either we're going to just come together as nature planned man and woman to come together without games, or I'm going to crush you. So, well, let's see what else he has to say.
Not true. And so if you've been burned by men, where you've overfunctioned, you've overgiven to the relationship, the obvious counter reaction to that is, well, I have to give less. Right? So, because again, just get this logic. My last boyfriend, I did his laundry and I cooked him dinner and I was always telling him how hot he was and I did everything right and he still left me. Right. And so the reaction is, I'm going to stop doing that. So you're going to give less to your future relationships in hopes of getting more. And that, again, we'll go back to the work analogy. That would be the employee who comes into work and instead of coming in early and staying late to impress the boss and get a raise, says, I'm going to come in for 2 hours a day. I'm going to give less and I'm going to hope I'm going to get more. It's not how relationships work. Relationships are about finding two people who are givers. Right? The problem is that paradigm's been messed up. You've overgiven to a taker. You found a guy who didn't appreciate you. But the problem wasn't that you were giving too much. The problem was that you chose a guy who didn't give as much in return.
So there's another side to that, because we always try to say, well, the woman gives. Most women really are not committed in their relationships. And the reason I can say most women are not committed, because if you're really committed to the relationship, one of the first things you do is find out what your significant other needs in a relationship from you. And most women do not do that. They don't ask. They just assume. Almost like they assume all men need the same thing. If the last two guys liked it, and they didn't even ask, they don't even know if the last two guys liked it. They just did it to the last two guys, and they just assumed the next guy, and perpetually any other guy in the future. They'll just keep doing the same thing. And so a man could be completely unfulfilled, even sexually, in a relationship, and the woman never checked. And she says that she gave and gave and gave, and she never learned what the guy needed for fulfillment. And then they claim victim, and I'll give less and less and less in each relationship, and they'll become more and more and more of a victim. Just doesn't work. This is where very healthy conversation needs to happen. And a lot of times they're getting bad advice from their female friends or their mother about giving less and less. You make him love you more. I've heard women say a man should love a woman more than a woman loves the man, and only be in a relationship with a man who loves you more is what I've heard women say, and I was really surprised to hear that. So the goal is, as he's saying, is to give less and then to demand more and to claim that men are just taking from you. So we're talking about, are people giving bad advice in relationships? So we're looking at all the different avenues of where men give, or where people give bad advice. And what's interesting is a lot of it is coined as common sense, and it's really not so common. Like, we should say common sense is not so common. Interesting, PJ. Yeah, and I still want to get to your other comment, but let me see what else this guy. I didn't listen to him.
So the answer is not to give less to a relationship, or to establish like boundaries. I'm not going to be generous. I'm not going to be nice. I'm not going to say I love you. Right? You're being very, very cold and protected. And I'm really talking about loving with reckless abandon. Throw yourself in, give him the best girlfriend experience he's ever had, and you'll see that the right guy steps up and acts like that kind of boyfriend. I know that was the case with my wife. She sort of set the bar for the kind of person that I want to be with, and she brings out a better side in me. If she gave me less, she would probably have a less appreciative husband. You need to sleep with the guy. Sorry, I'm going through so much advice, but I had all this.
What's going on, Reg? Talking about bad advice. So much bad advice is given in relationships, and people take it like it's great advice.
Stuff written down. You need to sleep with the guy or he'll leave, right? Or you need to wait a specific number of dates. There's go to any number of blogs and you'll hear some version of that. Oh, no, you don't understand. Guys these days, they just move too fast. You have to sleep with them in the first 3 dates or they're gone. Or, you need to wait 3 weeks and 4 days. Like, that's the time that you're supposed to do it.
Or even on the flip side, you have to make the guy wait for 90 days, right? So, and a lot of guys are pushing back on that. They're saying, okay, so I got it. You want to ration out sex if you think I'm committed to you in a relationship, because you see your vagina as only being for a man who's committed to you. So men are saying, well, same with my money. I'm not spending any money on you until we're in a committed relationship. So if it takes 90 days to figure that out, don't expect me to pay for one single date. And women are having a problem with that, which kind of gets us to your question, PJ, about women control access to sex and men control access to relationships. So here's the hi, Andrea. So here's I've been making a bunch of plugs for my book on this show today. So I actually talk about a much more mature way for men and women to interact about sex. I've asked countless women, would you stay in a marriage? I asked them, what would you do if one day your husband comes home and says, honey, I love you, um, and I no longer want to have sex with you. I love you. I think you're beautiful. I want to sleep with you and cuddle with you, and I want to do all the things that we normally do in our marriage without sex. And women say, well, is he physically unhealthy? Let's take him to a doctor, or he's got to go to a psychologist. Maybe something's going on in his head. We're going to get him fixed, or I'm going to tempt him. We're going to do all these things. And I say, no, he's 100% healthy. He's fine. He loves you. He wants to be with you. He's just saying, we're going to be together. We're just not having sex. Every woman except for one said, I'll divorce him. And then I asked, well, what if it's a boyfriend? You're not married. She said, I'm out of that relationship even faster. They all said, I don't want to be with a man who doesn't want me sexually. The woman who said she would stay, she said, I don't like sex anyway, so it doesn't matter if we don't have sex. So men and women come together and pretend like women don't want sex. So we have this whole notion of a man is chasing something that a woman doesn't want. Yet, if you put her in a relationship and take sex off the table, she does not want to be in that relationship. Now, some guys say, well, you take away her only card, right? She can't manipulate or control you once you say you don't want sex. And as long as you want sex, she can keep it as a carrot on a stick. So I'm saying, PJ, that as adults, we approach sex like children, right? So we're all here because two people had sex. Unless your parents were at an orgy, then there were probably more than two people, and maybe you think your father's your father, but still two people had to have intercourse, right? So we're all here because of sex. Yet we act like it's one of the most taboo conversations, and we can't talk about it. Don't mention sex on a first date. Like I don't get all this. When the fact of the matter is the woman wants to have sex too, and she actually wants to enjoy it. So men go in believing that women have access to sex, as opposed to saying, hey, look, I'm sexually attracted to you. I'm interested in having sex with you. I Except sex is really important to me. I like it to be really good. So don't worry, I'm not going to try and pursue sex. This is our first date. However, if the stars line up and we both feel it's the right thing to do, I will let it happen. What I want to focus on, I want to let you know I am sexually attracted to you, right? And I want to know if you're sexually attracted to me. And then I want to spend time getting to know you. I want to see if, we vibe, right? So is everything there? Do we really want to be with one another? Now, if this is just a hookup, then then I guess you play the game, right? You play the game and you have sex and you do your one night stand or whatever it is. If you're really looking for more out of this, why can't men and women talk about sex from the beginning and establish there is sexual interest, right? And before we jump into bed, let's get to know one another because I want it to be good. Why can't that be an adult conversation? Why does that have to be, as some women call it, creepy, or you're trying to force it? No, we're not forcing it. Why do we have to pretend we don't want sex with you to have sex with you? That's like childish. I've had these conversations with women, and I even asked, look, not pushing for sex tonight, or maybe it's a second or third conversation. I want to know if you're sexually interested in me. You are? Yes, great. So, what do you need from me to be comfortable to have sex with you? So and I'll tell her, look, I don't understand why you as the woman are in charge of when or if we have sex. I mean, if you're not sexually interested, that's cool. I understand. And I have a decision to make. If you are, let's talk about when we mutually want to have sex and what you need. Like, that's an adult conversation. It just is. Well, we're taught to play make boo. We're taught to play like peekaboo. Peekaboo, I want sex with you. Peekaboo, but I'm pretending I don't. Like, this is crazy, man. And we push this. We push this Puritan culture. We've never gotten rid of it. It's never been successful. And we still act like we're Puritans who suppress everything, including sex. People can't even enjoy sex. So, access to great sex is mutual. Yes, PJ, if you haven't smashed that like button, smash it. So, we're talking about bad advice. And, a lot of the bad advice that's given, relationship that's given, a lot of it is given as common sense, as though it's true, it's factual. And I already showed a video. So if you're just coming in, I did a screen share on YouTube, and they actually had university studies and psychologists who talked about how uh, a lot of what we call advice is really not good advice based on what psychologists have said. And one of the interesting ones was never go to bed angry. And they were like, well, not so bad to go to bed angry. You sleep on it and you talk about it the next day. But we're told never go to bed angry. You have to talk it out. If it takes until 4 a.m, right? So what else does this guy say?
And these are all made up numbers based in fear. Right? And I want to help you turn around that fear. Right? You are the CEO of your love life. He is the intern who's applying for a job with you. If he wants to have sex with you, it has to be on your terms. Now, if you're a good CEO, you care about what your intern thinks. You want to give him a good working.
You see, he is promoting the very thing that doesn't work. And it's why we end up, if women truly want equality, then, sex is mutual. Why aren't we mutually discussing it? Why are we pretending that it's not there on the table? Why are we saying what he says? The woman is in charge, is the CEO of sex. How women get more out of sex than men do. Just do the research. Their climax lasts 3 times as long as ours. And maybe that is the problem, PJ, right? So women have been using sex as a bargaining chip because they haven't been told they have to have anything more. And the biggest problem is that we keep telling little girls and women that men only want one thing. So if a woman believes that men only want one thing, then she's prepared to give him the one thing that she's been told he wants: sex. And when the man realizes he needs more than sex to make a relationship work, and the woman realizes that's not enough, you're going to have a lot of frustration and people won't know where to go next. So then they start saying the chemistry is not, all these excuses, all these things, irreconcilable differences. And we all know over 70% of divorces are initiated by women. But women are going into relationships ill prepared. And a lot of men go in ill prepared because they also believe that that to be a man, the only thing you need from a woman is sex. I mean, what a mindset for people to have. Like, it's kind of a cruel trick to find out it's all a lie. So There's a ton of bad advice out there, whether it's the manosphere, relationship advice. Uh, I hate to say there are even some psychologists that are not giving great advice because they haven't dealt with their own internal conflicts when it comes to relationships. And yet they're attempting to help people. Now, I do understand, right? So you don't necessarily have to be the best at something to give advice, right? So how many coaches in the Olympics were not Olympic athletes themselves? They didn't win gold medals, but they trained athletes to be gold medalists. Most people don't know. I don't know if it's still the fact, but the greatest kicking coach, right? So kicking for soccer or kicking, punting, and football, the greatest kicking coach that I know of never kicked a ball. Now, he never kicked a football or a soccer ball in his life. He's been in a wheelchair from a child. So he hasn't been able to walk. So he never kicked the ball. Well, what this guy did is he studied kickers. He loved football so much that he eventually started watching kickers like in slow motion. And then he got it down to one frame at a time. And he noticed a pattern of a good kicker. And so then he could watch a football game and know if the kick was going to be good or bad just even before the guy connected with the ball. So when he went out to coach kickers in the NFL and he showed up in a wheelchair, a lot of guys were like, "Hey man, get out of here. You're in a wheelchair and you're going to teach me how to kick a ball?" But when someone finally hired him and saw how good he was, I'm only saying that, yes, there are people who may not have technically mastered what they're talking about, except they mastered an understanding and they have what I would call pattern recognition, right? So they can recognize patterns of success and patterns of failure. So there are people who are really good at recognizing patterns in relationships, and they can really help people get to the other side of a good relationship without sabotaging it, and help them. You can even impart tools to help people recognize their own self-sabotage patterns. But there are a lot of guys who haven't mastered relationships that way, yet they're out there giving advice on how to deal with the surface problems. And they're all sort of making videos about the same things. They're all kind of parrots in a parrot choir saying the same thing. Hey, Reggie, actually perfect. Yeah, damn, that's a really good one. Richard Williams never played tennis and taught his daughters how to play tennis, except he studied that, man. You better believe he studied and he knew how to make his daughters into champions. Well, great. I didn't know he never played, but that's a great example. Uh, Misuse that women only want clean drinking water. So you're saying that women want nothing else except clean drinking water? So, um, well, okay. So you know what? So that reminds me of the punchline to the punchline of asking women, "What will you do if your husband never wants to have sex again?" The punchline is all these years, women have been using men for sex, and they've tricked men into believing that it's men who are using women for sex. So imagine men are actually literally blinded by the notion and the belief that to be a man wants one thing, sex. And the whole time you're being blinded by this belief, It's the woman who's using you for sex and pretending to be a victim of a man who only wants one thing, when it's her who only wants one thing. That's been what's happening. It's why so many women will pick a bad boy, whether she's single or married, because she wants great sex. When a woman knows her body, she will enjoy sex immensely. And if you don't deliver sex, the woman is not going to stay with you. And it's amazing when I present that to women. First, I ask them, what would you do if your husband doesn't want to have sex? And they all eventually get to, I'm divorcing. I'm out. He's gone. I don't want to be with a man. I don't never want to be with a man who doesn't want me. I say, oh, so it's women using men for sex, because there are men who are in marriages where their wife is withholding sex. And it doesn't matter what the reason is. I've heard a variety of reasons. The man stays. Why? Because if a man leaves just because his wife doesn't want to have sex, he's considered a dog and he's insensitive. So the man stays. Women leave. You deny a woman sex, she's out. And they don't say they're going to cheat. They say divorce. So that's using a guy. That's using men for sex. So if you have these kinds of conversations with women, here's what you can say. Look, okay, now that I understand, if you're with a husband or a boyfriend and he doesn't have sex with you, you're out. If it's a boyfriend, you're cutting him fast. If it's a husband, you want a divorce. You never want to be with a man who doesn't want you. So let me give you a promise. You never have to worry about me putting out. I will be the guy who puts out. I understand you're here to use me for sex. I'm okay with that. I'm not going to feel like a victim, and I will deliver the very thing you want. It's amazing to watch women they start to sort of backtrack and say, well, no. It's like you demolish the whole house of cards of the bargaining chip, right? So don't worry, I'm here, and I'll put out for you. And I understand you're just here to use me. And women start to, no, you're trying to trick me. No. It's kind of funny when that happens. So I'm not necessarily giving advice. These are some things I've done that worked for me. I'm not saying they'll work for everyone. I've done them for a while, so I've gotten pretty good at them. Some of them are so counterintuitive that if you're in conflict, if you attempt to do something and you're in the back of your mind, you think it won't work, it probably won't, and then you'll have evidence that it doesn't work, right? So that's why I don't give it advice, right? I do understand how to transform people. I do understand how to get people out of their own way. I understand how to get people to stop sabotaging themselves, right? So, and that's most important, right? So when people can see their own saboteur behavior, it becomes much, much easier for them to correct themselves, right? And it's always easy to see it in someone else. When you learn to see it in yourself, you start to have this power and mastery of self, and it helps you make better decisions. So part of helping people develop that power and mastery is to show lots of examples of bad advice, because we've heard a lot of this ourselves. You can't even hear me, Reggie? I played some videos already, so. Oh, yes, and PJ, yeah, regurgitating to get subscribers, yeah. Everyone says the same thing. There's a quote, and the quote goes something like this, and I forget who said it, but you can look it up. It's a quote. The quote goes, "If you make people think they are thinking, they'll love you. If you make people really think, they'll hate you." So I often come here to make people really think. And I understand whether it's the manosphere or if it's women, uh, don't always have the greatest appreciation for thinking. But I'd rather see men be better equipped to handle themselves in life. Like relationships, that's just one aspect of life. So who you are is who you are. It doesn't matter if it's work relationship or intimate relationship or your family. So I like to give people real things to think about. And I understand some people may actually hate the idea of having to think. I understand that, but they often appreciate it in the end. Yeah, and PJ, yeah, you say it's difficult to unlearn. So unlearning is absolutely critical. So maybe the biggest problem of unlearning is most people haven't even learned to learn. So learning to unlearn is even more difficult because we're talking reverse engineering. However, you can give people tools to help them discover things that they've been indoctrinated with, right? And it's almost like we didn't learn this stuff, right? So we go to school, they give you these books and you read them and you memorize what was said in multiple choice and essays. So you don't really learn this stuff. You actually just memorize what they put in front of you. And it's the same when we learn our language. We speak English. You all understand me when I speak English because you memorize the words that were given to you on a daily basis from the day you were born. Eu quero falar com vocês em outro idioma, vocês não podem entender-me. Por quê? Porque não aprendeu outro idioma. You didn't learn to speak another language. So you didn't memorize a second language. You didn't memorize Portuguese or Russian. Очень приятно познакомиться. You didn't memorize that. So we just repeat what's given to us. It's not even that we learned it. We just repeat it. We heard it, we read it, we memorize it, and that's the way we function. Not by actually thinking things through and learning it. It's like running on autopilot, PJ, right? It's almost like we've become machines, right? So we just kind of, there's a stimulus, someone says something or does something, or an event occurs, and there's this automatic response. We don't even think about it. It's almost like, people, I was going to go into this, I'm going to time out. We just function almost machine like. And that a machine doesn't require thinking. And a lot of bad advice gets pushed out like that. And so it's difficult to unlearn it because it's just memorized and it's just part of our neural paths. It's in our brain. It's all we have. And it becomes disruptive to disengage from those thoughts and unlearn them. So I didn't make fun of any of the bad advice. It's out there in so many different forms, and people trust others, and sometimes, as I said, it's even a psychologist that can be given bad advice, and you don't know the difference because you trust them, and you don't know that the reason they became a psychologist is because they thought they were so screwed up, or they thought their family was screwed up, therefore they are screwed up, and they're trying to figure out themselves and their family, and psychology really hasn't even helped them as much as they thought. So they're still in conflict with themselves, and they end up not doing the best job of helping a person discover themselves. This happens more often than not. And if you doubt me, I have proof. look at the United States. How often do we help people with mental challenges? We just have pills now. Take this pill, take that pill. This will make you forget it. This will take away the stress. This will take away that. We don't actually deal with it. We're not curing mental challenges that people have and making them mentally healthy. That's like taking a pill to be that builds the body you want without actually doing the work in the gym. So there's work to be done. And I understand that. So I wanted to, this is Friday. I do YouTube and chill. Wanted to sit back. I like to talk about the intimacy of relationships. Often love talking about sex, but this one wasn't really about focused on sex. We did address that. I mean, how can you talk about intimate relationships and never deal with sex? So I wanted to kind of sit back, chill, talk about sex. If you haven't liked this video, this is a good time to smash that like button. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, great time. Subscribe, hit the bell so that you can receive notifications when I'm doing either I'm putting out some videos or I'm doing a show. So appreciate your support. You guys have always been great. I love the comments. It gives me a good dance. We can dance and talk about things that are actually happening out here. My commitment is that I always provide value to you. That's my commitment. If you have suggestions for topics you'd like to hear me talk about, especially if they are politically incorrect, send them to me. You can either send them through YouTube or catch me on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, and make some suggestions for topics that I can put out. So in the meantime, I'm going to bring this to a close. As I said, my commitment is that I give you something to think about. I gave you some bad advice. I gave you lots of bad advice that's given so that you can rethink the advice that's commonly given so that you can see it's not as healthy as most people may think. I'm asking you to rethink relationship reality so that you can actually get the things that you want out of life. Can you control the modern woman? That's a topic you want me to do? Interesting. Maybe I'm going to touch on that on Sunday. I have a topic for Sunday. I know Sunday's going to be, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I know it's going to be politically incorrect. I know it. And there'll probably be some pushback on it, but we are going to address that. And I think maybe we'll be diving into that modern woman. So, and I'm going to be using current events. So I'm not going to be just pulling this out of air. We're going to be looking at some real world things happening. And most of us are aware of it, unless you're living under a rock. So cool. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Dr. Ted Santos, thank you. And I'll be back next Friday with more YouTube and chill so we can sit back and chill, and maybe we'll have something even more juicy and sexual next time. So enjoy the weekend. Take care, everyone. Good night. Goodbye.